Today, from the topic, you already know we are here to talk about fencing. A lot of you have been asking questions on this, cause of that, so I've started to talk on it. And it's going to be a bit long because I'm going to give you the full details that you need that will help you to do your calculations by yourself. We are going to firstly talk about the cost of excavating and clearing of the land. Secondly, we are going to talk about the cost of pouring and mixing of the concrete footings. Thirdly, we are going to talk about the cost of laying blocks. Then in our next video, we'll talk about the cost of putting up gates. Please, because it's going to be a bit long. And please, if today is your first day of coming, kindly hit that subscription button. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. And there is a thanks button you will see below the video with a love heart. Yes, with a heart and a dollar sign on it. Kindly click on that and try to buy some and send to me. It's a way you can say thank you to what I'm doing if it so pleases you. It's not by force anyway. And you can also help me to share after watching if it is helpful to you. So we are going to start with the first one, which is the cost of clearing and excavating the land. But before then, I want us to know that when it comes to land, there are different ways of measuring land. In some places like in Lorry here, most of the times they measure land 50 by 100. You get, while some places is 60 by 120, some places is 50 by 120. But we are going to work with 60 by 120. And from the topic, you've seen that we are talking about two plots here, which will be 120 by 120. That is the example I'm going to use. I've used 100 by 100 before. So we are going to use 120 by 120 today as two plots. And this one, 60 by 120 equals 648 square meter. So this 120 by 120 will equal 1,276 square meter. So whichever way they are measuring it in your area or in your place, with the explanation I'm going to give right now, is going to help you go a long way. But please don't forget to like the video as you are watching it, because I'm going to dive into the video, the main thing right now. So firstly, the cost of clearing and excavating the land. The cost of it is determined by the size, yes, the size and the depth of the excavation. That is also considered. And thirdly, the location, because like in Ilori here, it can be cheaper than those building in Abuja, Lagos, and all that. That is why I just had to let you know about it. So for example, now if the depth of the area to be excavated is 0.6 meter, that means 985 feet. And if the width of the area to be excavated is 0.675 meter, which means 2.21545 feet. Please, I have to give you all these measurements so that you can fully understand how we are going to calculate it later on. Remember, the total length of the land is 1,296 square meter, which is 120 plus 120 plus 120 plus 120, which equals 480 square meter. And that will give us 146.304 meter. And the area where gate will be removed, because you are not going to fence it. Gate will be there, so you are not going to include it. And it's normally 12 feet. Okay, because we don't need to excavate the area, so we have to remove it. So to get the area that will be fenced, we will minus that 12 feet for the gate from the total 480 feet. Remember, we are working for two plots of 60 by 120. So when we minus 12 from 480 feet, we are having 468 feet, or 146 or we say 146.304 meter minus 3.6576 meter. It's still the same thing that we did 480 by 12 feet. And that will give us 144.646 meter. So this means that the total length of the area to be fenced is 144.6464 meter, approximately 145 meter. Okay, 145 meter, that is 168 feet. So to calculate the cost of excavating, you will multiply the depth. Remember, the depth is 0.6. I said it initially, 0.6 meter. The width is 0.675 meter, and the total length of the area to be fenced is 144.6464 meter, or approximately 145 meter. So if this is what we have, we are going to multiply them all together. 0.6 multiplied by 0.675 multiplied by 144.6464 meter, and it will give us 58.58172 meter. 58.58172 meter. That is what we are going to get. Now the rate of excavation or the charges ranges from 600 to 1,000. Remember the factors that affect it that we talked about initially: the area, the area of the place, the depth, and all that. So, but normally it's from some places you can even get it at 500, but normally these days it's 600 to 1,000, depending on your location. And the labor cost is negotiated by cubic meter. So if that is the case, now if the rate of the excavation is 1,000, for example, per meter, and the total area is 144.6464 meter, approximately 145 meters, it means we will multiply that 1,000 by 145 meters, and that will give us 145,000 naira. That is if they are charging you 1,000 naira per meter in your area. But if it's 500, you multiply it by that 145 meter. I hope we are flowing. So now, but if the cost is 800, it's still the same thing. You multiply it by that 145 meter. While the cost of clearing can also range from 30,000 to 100,000. But you can always negotiate with them, okay? So using 70,000 for clearing, for example, I know we are going to use 70,000 for clearing as an example. The cost of excavating and clearing 2 plots of land will be 145 for the excavation plus the 70,000 for the clearing, and we'll be having 215,000 naira. That is for the first stage, clearing and excavating the land. So secondly, now the cost of pouring and mixing the concrete footings. The materials needed to mix the concrete are cement, we all know that, sand, water, and granite. But I'm not going to include the cost of water here, because where we really did this work, water was not in any way our business, because the client had enough water there. So I didn't include it in this my calculation. If you don't have water, you should add it up by yourself. The recommended ratio for mixing the concrete is 1:3:6. 1:3:6 and 19 mm aggregate of granite. 19 mm. This ratio simply means, I explained similar thing in my last video. This ratio simply means you have to use 1 bag of cement with 3 head pans of sand and 6 head pans of granite. That is 1:3:6. when mixing the concrete footings. And the size of granite to be used for the concrete is 19 mm. That 19 mm is 3/4. Most of us just know it as 3/4. Okay. So now, for us to know how many of these materials will be needed for the concrete footings, this is where most of your question comes from. That is what you need to. So listen very well, please. How to know the quantity of materials that we needed for this. Please pay attention. Okay, now to know how many materials will be needed for the concrete footings on a total length of 216 meters, we will calculate now. Firstly, to determine the number and volume of materials. The total length now is 216 meters. The sum of the ratio is 1 plus 3 plus 6. 1:3:6. That's 1 plus 3 plus 6, which will give us 10. That is for the sum of the ratio. Then the width of the excavated foundation, remember we have given that initially, is 0.675 meters. Are we together? So the thickness of the mixed concrete is always between 0.05 meter to 0.1 meter. We are going to work with 0.1 meter here. For the dry land, okay? Yes. For a floppy ground is varied. For a dry land that is leveled is normally 0.05 to 0.1 meter. Now to find the total volume of the concrete footings needed, you will multiply the total length, the width of the excavation, and the thickness of the concrete, which is the total length. Remember, we approximated it to 145 instead of 144.6464. We approximated it to 145 meter. So the total length now is 145 meter times, that is multiplied by 0.675 meter, which is the width, and then the thickness, which is 0.1. It will give us 9.7875 meter. To find how many bags of cement needed for the concrete footings on the foundation, you will divide the total volume of the concrete by the sum ratio, which is 9.7875 divided by 10. Remember, the sum ratio is 10, and that will give us 0.97875. So taking a constant 0.035 meter for a volume of a bag of cement, the total bag of cement needed for concrete footing is 0.97875 divided by 0.035. That 0.035 is a constant, so that will give us 27.964 bags. Did you get it? That will give us 27 bags plus. So let's just approximate it to 28 bags. That we are looking for how many bags of cement for this 145 meter of land. Okay, the total length is 145 meter. That is just what I've given now. That for you to know that, you will take the constant, which is 0.035 meter for a volume of a bag. Okay, you will take 0.035 meter for a volume of a bag of cement. The total bag of cement needed now will be 0.97875 divided by that constant, which is 0.035, and it will give you 27.9 plus, so approximately 28 bags. To find the volume of sand needed for concrete footings, this is another point. Multiply the total volume of the concrete and the sum of the ratio by the sand ratio. The sum, you know, is 0.97875 you multiply it by 3. That is the sand ratio. Remember, our ratio is 1:3:6. 1 bag of cement to 3 head pan of sand, and then 6 head pan of granite. So the ratio of sand is 3. You multiply it and it will give you 2.93625 meter. So taking the volume of sand to be 3.8 meter, we will have 2.93625 multiplied by 3.8, and that will give us 0.773 meter, which means about 1 trip of sand for the concrete. So what we will be needing for these 2 plots is just 1 trip of sand. Okay, so now to find the volume of the granite needed for the concrete, multiply the sand ratio with the result of the total volume of the concrete and the sum of the ratio. The total volume is 0.97875 multiplied by 6. Remember, our ratio is 1:3:6. So granite is 6, and that will give you 5.8725 meter. Thus, the volume of the granite needed is 5.8725 divided by 3.8, and that will give you 1.545 meter, which means about one and a half trip of granite for the concrete foundation. So to determine the cost of labor and materials needed for concrete footings, from our calculation, we had 28 bags of cement that will be required for that, and one bag is 4,000 naira. Some places you can get it 3.8, some places 4.2. It depends on the type of cement you are buying and the area as well. So you are going to work with 4,000 naira. So the total amount for the cement now is 28 multiplied by 4,000, and that will give us 112,000 naira. Then for sand, we need 1 trip of sharp sand, which is 30,000 naira, and then for granite is 1.5 trip, which is 120,000 naira. So that one, it depends on the prices they are selling it in your area, but these are the prices that we use to buy for the ones that we worked with. So for labor cost is determined by the number of bags of cement used by the mixed concrete. That is for labor. At the same time, it varies from location to location. So labor in some places you can get, it varies from 700, some places even 600, 500. They will do that for you. It varies from 700 to 1,000 for 1 bag of cement. So using 800, what we used for this work was 800 per bag. So that's what I'm going to work with. Using 800 for an example, we have 28 bags multiplied by 800, and that will give us 22,400 naira. The total cost of materials and labor for mixing and pouring the concrete on the excavated ground are cement plus sand plus granite plus labor, and that will give us 112,000, which we got on cement, 30,000 which is for the sand, plus 120,000 for the granite, and then 22,400, which will total 284,400. That is, this 284,400 is for the cost of pouring and mixing of the concrete. That is for casting. Yeah. So thirdly, we'll be looking at the cost of laying blocks. This is another thing that you will want to know. Before this, you need to know the height you intend to level the fence. With that, you will be able to know or determine how many coaches of blocks that will be required, and also how many blocks that will be needed to reach the height. We are going to work with 12 feet. So listen so that you see how we calculated it, and whichever feet you want to work with, you can as well do that with this example I'm going to give. So if we are going to work with 12 feet, it means that the coaches of blocks should also be 12 coaches. And 2 coaches will be buried on the ground as a foundation, and the remaining 10 coaches will be for fence wall. Are we together? So the height of the fence you intend to build will determine how much it will cost to complete the fencing. Also the number of blocks that will be required. I've said that before. So how to calculate the blocks that. So now we are going to talk about how to calculate the number of blocks for fencing 2 plots of land of 60 by 120, which is 120 by 120. Remember, the total length of the area to be fenced is 145 meters, and the length of any given blocks is always 450 mm or 0.45 meters, which equals 18 inches. While the width of any given block varies, but the commonly used ones are the 6 inches, which is 150 mm block, or the 9 inches, which is 225 mm block. To determine the number of blocks that will cover the first block level or coach is by dividing the total length of the area, which is 145 meters, by the length of a block, which is 0.45 meters. That is 145 meters divided by 0.45 meters. It will give us 322.22. Let's just say blocks, or let's just say 323 blocks. This means that it will take 300. So this means that it will take 323 blocks to level the first coach on the total portion. Did you get what I just said? Maybe I should repeat it. To determine the number of blocks that will cover the first block or coaches is by dividing the total length of the area by the length of a block. The total length is 145 meters, we have said that before, and the level of the block is 0.45 meters. So when you divide it, you have 322.22, or let's just say 323 blocks, which means that to level that 323 blocks will be used to level the first coach on the total portion of the ground that is to be fenced. Okay, so to level it to 12 feet now, remember the height is 12 feet, which is 12 coaches as well. 12 feet, 12 coaches. We will multiply the 323 blocks by 12, or 322 blocks by 12, which will give us 3,864 blocks, or 3,876 blocks. So to level a fence of 2 plots of land to the height of 12 feet will take 3,864 blocks, or 3,876 blocks. Now we are going to talk about how to calculate the number of pillars or columns to use for this fence. Taking the distance between one pillar to another to be 3 meters, we will divide the total length, which is 145 meters, by the distance of each pillar or column, in order to get the number of pillars or columns that the fence will carry. Now we have 145 meters, which is the total length, divided by 3 meters, which is the distance, and we have 48.33 pillars or columns that will, or let's just say 48 pillars. Okay, we have 48 pillars that will be used for that. So now we will minus 2 pillars that will be used on the gate because they will use reinforcement. Yeah, remember we are working on dry land here. If it was a swampy area, you know that all the pillars or some will use reinforcement. Yes, you have to cast them. So you will need rods and all that for that. But this one is on dry land, so it's just the one of gate that will use reinforcement here. And when you minus that 2 pillars from 48 pillars, you will be having 46 pillars or columns. Alright, so you should always remember that blocks was used for the pillars because it's a dry land. I've said it. But if it were a swampy area or waterlogged area, it will be iron rod for reinforcement throughout. I've said that before. So now, how to calculate the number of blocks to be used on the pillars. This is another point. To get the number of blocks for one pillar, it will be 1 block multiplied by the number of coaches, which is 12 coaches. We are working with 12 feet. So 1 times 12 we know is 12 blocks for one pillar. So to get the number of blocks that will be used on 46 pillars or columns, we multiply 12 blocks, which is used for one pillar, by that 46. And we have 552 blocks for the pillars. So the total block will be 3,864 for the fence, plus 552 blocks for the pillars. And that will give us 4,416 blocks. So you can just buy or budget 4,500 blocks. Why? Because there might be some damages, some breakage and all that. To avoid shortage, there is no way you will buy exact block when working with block, because definitely 1 or 2 must break. Okay, so you should buy more always. Now, to know the cost of blocks, cement, sand and labor work. Block 6 inches these days, you get them from 200 to 250 depending on area, but I'm working with 220 naira here. And 9 inches you get it from 250 to 320, I guess, but we are working with 280 naira per 1 9 inches block. So we are going to use 9 inches block as an example because that is what we used there. Now we have the total block of 4,416 blocks times that 280 per 1 block. You will have 1,36,480 for this. That is for block using 9 inches block. Okay, or if you are to buy 4,005, you multiply it by 280 and that will give you 1.260 thousand. It's always advisable to mold block by yourself. I used to say this always because you will get a better result when you do that. Quality purpose matters a lot, and also it will cut down price. It's cheaper, but you can only do that when you have reliable people to do that for you if you are not around. But if you are around, do it is better. So now the cement. To know the cost of cement that is required to lay the blocks, divide the total number of the blocks by 50, which is 4,416 divided by 50, and that will give you 88.32 or 90 blocks. Okay, or 89 bags. I mean to say, we are talking about cement, or 89 bags. So which means that 1 bag of cement, I told you we are working with 4,000 naira. So however they are selling it in your area, we multiply it by that. So 1 bag of cement is 4,000 naira. So 88 bags is 88 times 4,000 naira, and that will give us 352,000. Or if you are buying 90 bags, You multiply it by 4,000 and it will give you 360,000 naira. This simply means that one bag of cement can chop up to 50 blocks. That is why we divided it by 50. One bag of cement can be used to chop 50 blocks. Let me not bite my tongue. So 10 tons, when we are talking about sand now, to get that 10 tons of sand will be okay for it, and it costs 30,000. We have said that before. Labor work, the cost of labor for laying one block is between 50 naira to 80 naira, depending on your area. Some places 100 naira. The cost of 4,416 blocks, as we calculated by 80, let's use 80 naira because that is what we paid, will be giving you 353,280 naira. The total cost of laying blocks on the excavated portion on a 2 plots of land with a height of the fence between 12 feet, add cost of block plus cement plus sand and then labor, and that will be 1,260,000 for the block plus 360,000 for the cement plus 30,000 for the sand plus 353,280 for the labor. We are having 2,03,280 naira, or approximately 2,010,000 in case of other expenses. So therefore, to fence 2 plots, in conclusion now, to fence 2 plots of land with a height of 12 feet, you should budget. Now you have to add the cost of clearing and excavating the land. Secondly, the cost of mixing the concrete. Thirdly, the cost of laying blocks, which is 215,000 plus 284,400 plus 2,303,280 naira, and that will give you 2,680 naira. Remember, as we are calculating, we are only calculating the money for labors. We have not added engineers' money. So if you are using the medicine people, it might end like that. But if you are using an engineer who is going to be there to supervise your work, definitely you will pay him his own. So he's not just going to be there for you for free. So this, we added 300,000 for the engineer, and that gave us 2.8 million 2,680 naira, or approximately 2.8 million 10,000 naira. You see, this is where we landed for 2 plots of land, not just 50 by 100, but 60 by 120 per plot. So for 2 plots of land, we landed at 2,810,000 naira. Please, if you watch this video and there's anywhere you are a bit confused, let me know so that I can explain it better for you. I just needed to do this so that you understand how to calculate your materials by yourself, and to know the exact quantity of materials that will be needed for your work. I hope this will help you get a long way. Please, after watching this video, don't forget to click on that thanks button. Thank me with something, okay? Click on that text button and click on that $sign, okay? And do something for your girl. Don't forget to share if it's very well helpful to you. Share the video and join me on my Instagram and Facebook page at mclarebuildings. Thank you so much.